So I'm going to try to make an assembly video now. This is about all the material that you need. You've got your windshield wiper motor, the back, then those 6 pieces of wood. I cut them all out of 2 centimeter wood, except from the little piston plate, which is 15 millimeters. Then there's a PWM controller, some screws, some ring screws, and an old hinge. And here I've got a 12-volt power supply and some wiring. The first thing I'm gonna do is mount the gear motor, or at least drill the holes for the gear motor. And I already drilled the position where it goes, and now I'm gonna transfer the hole pattern that it has with those 3 M6 screws to my wooden side. So I'm gonna take my gear motor and put it into the hole, and then I'm going to mark the positions where the screws will be. So I had the center hole quite tight now, so I can mark those positions right. And now I'm gonna check the positions of the 3 screws here, if they fit. And afterwards I'm gonna remove the motor and then drill a bigger hole in the middle so I can fit this threaded sleeve, so it has enough room. So now I made room for the sleeve in the middle, so this fits, and you have to make sure that this can't touch anywhere. And the next thing I'm going to do is bend my rod here, and the challenge is that the rod is going to be here, and then it's going to be like a crank here, and has to go around my moving plate that's going to be installed here in the middle. So I've now bent my crankshaft so it fits around the thrust plate here, and then I'm gonna cut a thread here so it fits inside the sleeve of the gear motor, and then I'm going to assemble it to the motor to see if it's running straight. Now, to check if the crankshaft is bent straight, I hooked up a battery, and if you look at it like this, you can see how much the crankshaft is actually wobbling around, and then you can adjust your angles until it's running completely straight. So now I'm assembling the 4 sides together. Check if they're angled when you screw them together. And I already drilled some holes for the positions, so it's easier to mount. Okay, now the box is assembled so far. So now I'm gonna take my squeezing plate. I rounded the edges a little bit so it doesn't scratch or damage the bag. And this squeezing plate is going in like this. I made it a little bit smaller so it's got some play on both ends so it can move very easily. I'm now going to drill the holes of the turning point in the right position, and then I'm gonna take quite long screws to install the squeezing plate. What I can do in advance even is connect the piston plate to the squeezing plate with the hinge, so it's easier to do now than afterwards when it's installed. I can also install my two eye screws here that are later going to be attached to the crankshaft. So the center of the rotation point of the squeezing plate is 5.5 and 5.5 from both edges, and I'm going to drill a hole here that is bigger than my screw diameter that I want to install it with. So so the neck of my screw can turn very easily and be the turning point. And then on the squeezing plate I'm gonna drill a very small hole so the screw has a lot of friction and can't turn, can't fall out. So my thrust plate and my piston plates are now ready. I've got the hinge in between. And I'm now going to put my crankshaft inside. To do that you always have to turn those eye screws. It can be a little tricky, but with two hands it works quite well. I'm gonna like that, and then all the way through. And then when you've got it like that, you're all set for installation. So what I'm gonna do now before I put this in is I'm gonna put grease here on the hinge. Then I'm also gonna put some grease here, some lubricant here, and then here where the crankshaft actually goes in, I'm gonna lubricate that hole as well. And then I'm also going to lubricate those screws that are the turning axis of this thrust plate. So the assembly is in. This is still loose, no motor attached. I've got the screws for this turning point lined up, and I'm going to tighten the screws now, but not all the way. So what you want to do is put it all the way in and then just loosen it a tiny little bit so the screw doesn't have much friction. And the same on the other side. You can see that I've put some grease there. I've put lubrication here and also on the hinge, that no noise, no squeezing noise can be produced. Now checking that everything is moving the way it should. And next I'm going to install the windshield wiper motor right here. When I hold my motor like this, you can see that it doesn't fit perfectly. There's a little gap here and down here as well, and I'm gonna put a washer there. I don't want to put force on the motor by just screwing it on. I'm gonna put a little washer on this side and there, so the motor is positioned straight to the crankshaft. If you have some Loctite, you can put it on the mounting screws of the motor so they can't come loose. So that's the mechanical assembly done. The next step will be to adjust the length of this plate, like I show in my other video, to adjust the volume of the bag. You can put your bag in now and let it run and see if it runs well. You can also now install your DC motor controller. Put it somewhere here, or maybe better inside, so it can't be damaged when you carry the thing around. And then your power supply you can mount on the back or here somewhere underneath, and then you're done. I hope the assembly video was helpful, and if you have any feedback or if you built one and want to talk about it, please note below, and thanks for watching.